This week, we are talking with one of the great entrepreneurs of real estate named Brittney Kosev out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. She started as a solo agent just 6 years ago, and now through some very creative marketing tactics that she breaks down and shares with us today, you're going to want to take notes for those, by the way. She's expanding her office and her brokerages all across Texas and beyond. Very cool story to tell. You're going to love this one. What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 307 of the Massive Agent Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Brohm, here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And today's podcast is really entertaining. This is one of my favorite conversations I've had in quite a while with Brittney Kosev, a broker owner of BK Real Estate in Texas. She's growing. She has multiple offices all across Texas for the brokerage and is expanding even beyond that. And she's just grown at such a rapid rate. But after you hear her story today, you're gonna realize, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Of course she is. She's gonna share some very interesting, very creative marketing strategies and lead gen strategies because she started as a librarian. Okay, she was a librarian, a single mother who then got into real estate, and through hard work and some pretty clever creative means of marketing, she surpassed her income as a librarian within the first 2 years and then went all in on real estate. And fast forward, is now launched a brokerage and is expanding the hell out of that pretty quickly. So really cool to talk with this rising star of real estate, Brittney Kosev. If you are new to the Massive Agent Podcast, welcome. I am your host, Dustin Brohm. And this episode today, what we're really focused on is entrepreneurship. I have really made a transition with this podcast over the last nearly 6 years we've been doing it. I started the show almost 6 years ago with, marketing tactics and strategies. And we're going to talk about websites and Facebook ads and all this stuff, but quickly, grew over the last 6 years to realizing that I myself I'm an entrepreneur with a real estate license, and I'm about building businesses and building something scalable, building something that can provide you a lifestyle and flexibility and freedom as an agent in addition to the income, not just the income. Because I think you'd agree that if income is your only goal, you can get it. You can absolutely get it in real estate, but you may end up working 100 hours a week to get it, maybe only 70 hours a week, but that sucks. And you may not even see your kids grow up. That sucks too. But it's also not necessary. It's not required to go that route. There are other entrepreneurial ways to make a great living in real estate, and that's what we are highlighting on the podcast. Today's story is no different. I'm really excited for you to hear this because, like I said, I just had fun talking with Brittney, an amazing entrepreneur. She's still in production. She's still selling while building a business. And I think her brokerage, BK Real Estate, I think will just continue to grow and grow and grow. She's doing big stuff. So before we jump into the talk with Brittney, keeping current matters. I cannot think of a tool more useful, more necessary, more timely to have in your tool belt as an agent right now than KCM, keeping current matters. With all the upheaval and the changes, like last week in real estate was bonkers, starting on Halloween with NAR losing the lawsuit. I don't know how they lost this. Probably the worst defense in history, seems like. Again, my opinion. But they lose this lawsuit on Halloween. Then another lawsuit against Compass and Redfin and EXP and damn near every other brokerage that's out there was filed the same day, another class action lawsuit. So that's going to be fun. But then the very next day, the day after Halloween, Zillow bought Follow Up Boss, or at least it was announced that Zillow bought Follow Up Boss. So if you have not yet heard the most recent episode, the bonus episode that came out on Saturday, go listen to that. It's the breaking news bonus episode, the NAR verdict with Byron Lazine. You need to hear that because if you haven't been paying that close attention to the class action lawsuit, we break down what it was all about, what it means now that NAR lost. Now it's being appealed and it's going to be in appeals for years. So, nothing is changing as of yet, but yet there are changes. So we're going to talk about what those are and everything you need to know as an agent. So go back and listen to that bonus episode after this one if you haven't heard it yet. But keeping current matters. You need them in your tool belt because with all the craziness happening, they do all the research for you. They do all the hard work, all the legwork to understand and to know what is coming, what's happening with interest rates. Are they going to raise? Are they going to lower? Are we going to be sticking with these interest rates for a long time? And if so, what does that mean for your sellers? What does it mean for your buyers? What does it mean for you as a real estate agent? And how do you communicate that to your clients? KCM, I follow their founder on X, Twitter. I hate the word X, but X. I follow their founder on Twitter, okay? And he's always sharing these graphs from KCM, and they're so easy to understand. They're just so simple. And this is what you as a KCM member get in addition to all of the analysis and research and scripts that they give you. You need KCM. Go, don't take my word for it. Go try it out for yourself at trykcm.com/BAM and see why basically every leader in your market and other markets are all already using Keeping Current Matters. In addition to that, check out the BAMX community. It's an amazing group of like-minded, entrepreneurial, forward-thinking real estate agents all together in one spot. By having access to this community, you also get their courses, their online trainings, their webinars, everything for as little as $10 a month. But make sure you save even more money. Use code MASSIVE at checkout. Go to massiveagentpodcast.com/BAM. /BAMX. massiveagentpodcast.com/BAMX. Use code MASSIVE at checkout, get yourself a discount, and join the community that literally everyone who I've spoken with, who's part of it, swears by it, they just want to stay members of it forever. They're going to keep renewing. It's awesome. So check it out. Let's jump into our chat with Brittney Kosev, the broker owner of BK Real Estate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and coming soon to a state near you. Let's jump into it. All right, guys, I'm here with Brittney Kosev from BK Real Estate. Brittney, you have an awesome story to tell, and I'm excited to hear it because you're an entrepreneur with a real estate license that's built a business and a great, in my opinion, an accelerator for agents who want to be successful. But you haven't even been in real estate for that long, which is super cool to me. You've built what you've built, and you've built your experience in what did you say, 6 years?
Yeah, about 6 years.
I love that. Okay, so in those 6 years, you started as a solo agent?
Yes, that's correct. Started off 6 years ago, kind of working 2 jobs for a few years, and then got enough traction under me that I was able to cut that one loose.
What were you doing besides real estate?
I was a school librarian.
Really? Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It gives me an idea for the title of the show, too. That's really cool.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, being a librarian was great. I taught 4th grade, got my master's, became a librarian. The Disney Princess Belle, she was my idol, right? She loved going into the Beast Library and perusing, and I love my books, but it just wasn't paying the bills, you know? I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids, 13 and 11. So 6 years ago, I got a divorce and realized pretty quick that $60,000 a year was not enough to put the kids in all the things and have the lifestyle I wanted to live. So busted it out, 2 jobs for 2 years and was able to, like I said, get enough traction and let teaching go.
Okay, we could talk for about 3 hours just off of this right here. So when did you know, Brittney, that it was time to transition to full-time real estate? Was it obvious to you, or did you have to take a leap? I know a lot of agents struggle with that.
Any agent who's out there listening that has quit their primary job in order to start selling, it's always a leap. Unless you are maybe on a team with your family and they're going to support you, it's a leap regardless. And for me, I realized that I needed to let teaching go when I made $80,000 that second year selling real estate, and my teaching salary was $60,000. And I was doing it just nights and weekends. I would drag poor Owen and Nicole with me. We'd go, their bus would drop them off at my library. And then at that point, I had already made my appointments for the evening, and they would just go with me. They do their homework on the drive over. I used to teach in South Lake, which is a town in Tarrant County here in DFW. And I would drag them all the way to Garland to go look at houses. And they just had
Damn.
to make it happen. But when I was able to make more than I made teaching, I realized that I needed to cut it loose.
Was that your goal from the beginning? Like, did you kind of have that in mind that once your real estate income surpassed your teaching income that you'd jump, or was it in that moment that you had a realization?
I think that I'm a big believer in mindset and just getting yourself mentally ready before you do anything. And that's not something that comes easy to a lot of people, and it didn't come easy to me either. That first year, I think I made 40 selling, and if I really would have put pen to paper and my time that I put into selling properties versus teaching, I probably would have cut myself loose then. But I wasn't in the right mindset yet. I was so scared to lose benefits, to lose security, all of those things that, you don't have when you're a 1099. And so that second year, I just realized, you know what? If I can do it doing this, what's the worst that could happen? If I quit teaching and try it out, what's the worst that could happen? I go back to teaching, I go back to slinging books instead of slinging houses. That's not that bad.
Good point. Good point. Well, I love that attitude that you approached it with. So during those 2 years, though, as you were selling houses, what were you doing? Because I believe getting off the ground is the hardest part. Learning how to attract business while at the same time how to actually write offers and how to negotiate and structure deals, like all of that stuff you have to do all at the same time. So you were doing that while taking care of 2 kids by yourself and teaching. What were you doing to get business during that time in the first couple of years?
I don't know. People's backgrounds and stories, they could come from anything, right? You could have everything given to you, but you have that hustle inside of you and you'll make it happen. And for me, though, I had to put food on the table for the kids. And I knew that I had to do it. Otherwise, no one was going to do it for me. And so I got really creative. I would go in my neighborhood. I'd put the kids on their scooters or on their bikes, and I'd give them a stack of Post-it notes. And I'd say, hey, put one Post-it note on each of our neighbors' door, and when you're out of Post-it notes, come find me, and I'll give you $10. And on that Post-it note, I wrote, hey, call me about your house. And then I just had my phone number, not my name, nothing, just, hey, call me about your house with my phone number. And so then they're like, who is putting this on my house? So they're calling me. They think it's like, oh, my tree fell, or something's wrong with the roof, or maybe a baseball that went into the backyard. But really, I just wanted them to call me so I'd have their phone number, and then I just would try to build rapport with them pretty quick. And it worked out, and I got a few listings that way, got me some traction. And then another thing I would do is I would hit up just investors. I've been able to really develop some good relationships with local wholesalers, and I set up kind of a referral system to where if, they've got all these leads that they've paid for and they don't work out for them for whatever reason, maybe motivation's not there, or it's more retail, less distressed. I say, give it to me, let me work them. And I probably called hundreds and hundreds and hundreds my first few months of dead leads, but 2 of them panned out, right? And so I was able to pay them a referral fee, like a marketing expense, and got a couple of listings that way.
Who did you have early on as a mentor or was this second nature to you?
I was just thinking creatively. I didn't want to directly door knock. And I would do open houses, but I was thinking, what can I do with the time I have? Because I am a single mom. And so for me, I needed to be home or with my kids. You can't really take your kids when they're 5 and 7 to open houses and expect anybody to think that you're a legitimate professional, And so I had to utilize resources I had, and that was just my time.
Smart. So you also obviously were just determined as hell, because going through that many rejections, so to speak, to get a couple deals out of, this better than anyone. Most agents aren't willing to do that. They think it's a lot easier, that it's going to come a lot easier to them. So what kept you going through that?
I started listening to Grant Cardone. I read Sell or Be Sold. I'm just an absorber of information, and I think that comes back from, I was a librarian, so there's information to be found if you're willing to go seek it out. And I grew up really poor, super, super poor. I'm the oldest of seven, first person in my family to go to college. To me, there's just not, you have to want it if you're going to get it. I was telling my team today about Arnold Schwarzenegger and how, he grew up in Austria in a very poor home as well with an abusive father. And he would just sit in his bed surrounded by these bodybuilders. And instead of out playing with friends, he would just sit there and visualize himself as a bodybuilder. And that's what I would do. I would just sit and when I was home at night cooking dinner, just thinking about someday when I've got someone delivering food to the door and I'm hanging out with the kids and not having to do it all. I was just picturing it.
Incredible. So during this time, you're imagining, you're picturing, you're visualizing, and you're putting in the work creatively, by the way. I think that's writing on a note, call me about your house is, I'm sure some agents are hearing that and they cringe because they think that they would have to respond with a pitch, right? So I want to talk more about that. How did you respond in that situation? Because it's genius as far as getting attention and getting the phone to ring. Once the phone did ring, what was your approach? Did you have an immediate pitch, or what did you say to these people who thought that their tree had fallen over?
Yeah. So it's funny. I recently met a guy named Rob Stein. He's out of Austin. He and I collaborated to create a training software for my team, for my agents. And one of the scripts he has in there, it's ABC, action, benefit, commitment, right? So you call up some sort of call to action, how it's going to benefit them, and then you get them to commit. I didn't know I was doing that at the time. I really just wanted to get to know people and see if there was some sort of reason way down the road, who knows, that they might want to sell their house. And so I would say something like this: hey, oh, no, I'm sorry if I bothered you. No, it wasn't anything important. My name's Brittney. I was just walking around the neighborhood and noticed that your house looked like it would be great to get on the market. And here's why: because 2 houses down from you, it sold in 3 days and it went over asking. And I don't know if you've been thinking about it, but if you have, I'd love to talk to you more. Right? Action, benefit, commitment. I didn't know I was doing it at the time. Then I just was trying to get some traction.
Did you ever have any negative reactions to that, or were most people fairly pleasant?
Sure.
You did?
Yeah. I got hung up on, leave me alone. I'm on the do not call list. I'm so sorry, sir.
Yeah. Well, good thing you didn't call them, right?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
What's the worst that's going to happen, right? I mean, they're going to come harass me. I mean, I wasn't doing it in my direct neighborhood. I'd go one over.
Yeah, there you go. Smart. I like it. No, that's a really clever approach. I love it. So, all right, things are clicking for you. You're selling some houses. You're getting some business. When did you realize it was time to build a business? And was that your current brokerage that you have now, or did you start a team? What was that transition like to business owner?
I think that most people end up starting a team under them, right? And then taking it to a brokerage level. But for me, I don't know. There's this book called The Magic of Thinking Big. It's an old book. I don't know if you've ever read it, but he talks about having these ostentatious goals. And when you have these really big goals and you think so big, even if you only get halfway there, like you're 10 steps ahead of someone else. And so it was just last year. I only opened up my brokerage in January of 2023. But in probably the summer of 22, I was approached by someone who wanted to buy a multifamily. And I'd sold at that point commercial. I did tenant repping. I did single family, luxury, but I'd never sold an apartment. And I was kind of like, screw it. Let's go for it. Let's try. And my broker at the time was a little worried, kind of gave me like the rundown, like, hey, I don't know if you should be doing this. But if you don't know how to do something, and in my mind, I was a librarian. I can read, I can figure it out. I can call people, I can hire a mentor, consultant. I mean, it's still worth it. Even if I have to give them half my commission. And so I did it, and it was the biggest commission check I'd ever had. And at that time I was like, you know what? I did this all by myself. I figured it out. And why not just be me? Why not just start my own company? And I didn't really have intentions of growing it to a massive scale. I just wanted the autonomy. But then after it kind of word got out and people started hearing, I was like, well, I mean, maybe I could start a brokerage under me and teach others, because I do love teaching. I mean, I did it for 10 years, and it's kind of, as the oldest of seven, my sisters would probably say I'm bossy, but at the same time, you know, I'm pretty good at getting people to learn what I need them to learn and have fun doing it.
So as you were building this vision for yourself, being able to make an impact on others was obviously part of it, right? Was that obvious right from the start, or was it as you kind of started taking steps that you realized, wait, you could have both?
It was as I started taking steps, and like I said, word got out and I started talking to people. And at that time, I'd already been mentoring agents. Just they'd reach out, they'd want my advice, they'd want to be inspired. People who wanted to get licensed, and they kind of saw my come up. In fact, I have several agents on my team now with the brokerage. I call it team, but it's not really a team. But several agents that are former teachers, girls that I used to work with. I still have a principal she's trying to wrap up her last bit of teaching, and then she's going to go full time. And I love that. I think it's so inspiring. I've got a bunch of single moms, people that just, you know, they want to get to the point where they're financially free. And to me, I don't know. I think people are put on this earth to live to their highest potential. And when you're living to your highest potential, that energy that you're giving off, it can affect people in so many different ways. And I think for the best, right? And so that's what I try to be every day, is just a positive light for people.
I love that. So as you're building this brokerage, what's been the biggest mistake you've made so far? I'm curious what the misstep was. Or let me rephrase, if you'd rather, what would you have done differently if you were starting it again today?
You know, I think that every lesson, right, is I take it as a lesson. One of the silliest mistakes I've made is, so I give listing leads to my agents through those wholesale relationships I've developed with the investors.
Nice.
I give out listing leads, and I told the agents, and this was probably a limiting belief, because I didn't think anybody, I was like, well, what if people don't want to join me? I don't know. This is crazy. So I said that if I gave them a lead, it'd be a 65-35 split, which is pretty generous. And that 35 would go towards their cap. Well, the first couple of agents started closing those listing leads, and I'm giving 20% to my referral source, and I'm keeping 15, but none of it's going, or it's all going towards their cap. And so I'm actually not making much money at all off of them. And so that was probably a pretty big lesson early on, because some of my best agents capped so quickly, and I didn't get to capture any of that for the brokerage, but that's okay.
Well, and okay, so that's important. Every agent should want the brokerage they're with to be profitable.
Right.
And I see all these brokerages that come out that are trying to be someone else, just cheaper. And you look at the numbers, you're like, how the hell do they even make money? Like, how is that even possible for them to make money with that business model? And, you know, fast forward a few years, they didn't. But you want your brokerage to make money and to be profitable, because that's how they're going to keep pouring into training and resources and sustainability, right? Being around. That's so important. So you learn that fairly early on, which is good. I mean, thank God you didn't learn that years down the road when you had 1,000 agents or something.
That was something we fixed for sure.
Nice. So now that you have this brokerage and you're still producing as well, which is awesome. What do you think what do agents need most, especially right now with all the turmoil and changes that are happening or about to happen? What is it that you see agents need the most, even if they don't realize it yet?
I think that from what I'm hearing from the agents that are joining me, and just to give some perspective, I told you that I started off in January. I had about 6 or 7 agents that I just knew from my last brokerage, from working deals with. They came over and joined me, and then I was done. I didn't want anybody else. I wanted to figure this out on my own. And then word of mouth got out, and it slowly grew. But Only 3 weeks ago did I really start recruiting. And in these 3 weeks, I think we've gotten 6 or 7 new agents. And every agent that's joined, they say that what really made them choose us is just feeling like they're part of what we're doing, just feeling connected. And I think what they're actually longing for is accountability. I think that they want someone to say, hey, Dustin, you said that you were wanting to X, Y, and Z, but you're not doing it. What's going on? I think that when people say they want connectedness, what they really want is accountability.
So how do you provide that for, as the brokerage keeps growing and the numbers keep growing, how do you provide that accountability?
So we do group coaching calls on Wednesdays. That's kind of fun. And we get up there and we just talk about what we're struggling with, what we're grateful for, maybe some personal stuff, and then what we want to be held accountable for from one week to the next. And to me, that's a really big part of what we're doing. And as we grow, I want to continue it. We'll probably have to put limits on the different groups just so everybody gets some talk time. But I'll figure that out. Maybe do a couple of different sessions throughout the week.
Okay, this is awesome, and I'm thinking, I have an organization of agents too, and I'm always looking for ways to provide more and do more. And you're so spot on. Accountability doesn't necessarily mean you calling them or you texting them saying, "Hey, did you do your work?" You're empowering them to participate in their own accountability by asking them, "What do you need to be accountable for?" They know what they need to do, right?
Yeah, and I learned this strategy because I had the group coaching set up, but I learned this strategy from a friend I met at the Bigger Pockets conference because I also invest in real estate. That's a passion of mine. And he has a brokerage in Philadelphia, and he told me how he does it. And I just thought it was great because it's a win, a challenge, something personal, and then what do you want to be held accountable for? And it's not just on me holding them accountable. They set it in front of the whole group inside that mentor session. And so then, Dan could be like, hey, Bree, you said that you wanted to host an open house last week. Did you do it? And so I think that building of the community for the group accountability is part of the best part about it.
I love that. I'm going to make some changes in my group just based off that, because what I do ask, especially with the agents that I coach one-on-one, I say, what are you avoiding? And really that's just another way of saying, what do you want to be held accountable for?
Yeah.
Everyone knows what they should be doing. They
I'm
really
gonna
do.
write that down. Avoiding, because it could be the other A, what are you avoiding / accountable? I love that.
And it's, different ways to get to the same destination. Everyone knows what they should be doing. There's just something preventing them from doing it. And I have to applaud the way you handle that with letting them participate in their own accountability. They're basically holding themselves accountable. You just created the platform for them to do it and the environment for it to happen. So that's amazing. I know a lot of leaders struggle with, how do I provide accountability for my agents? And they think that they have to text everybody once a week, or they have to call everyone and like, hey, are you doing your work? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? But yeah, I have to applaud that. So no wonder your brokerage is growing so fast. And that's awesome. I had an epiphany here thanks to you, Brittney. So well, tell me more. What else are you guys doing that I can learn from? This is awesome.
You all my trade secrets. No, I'm just kidding.
So, okay, I'll just come right at it. What do you tell agents when they're deciding between joining you and somebody else? Why should they join your brokerage? What else is there?
I think that, I encourage people when they say, well, I'm just interviewing with you. I say, no, you should totally hear out EXP and Keller Williams, and you should hear people out, because I think when you know your options and then you pick the one that you think is best, you're going to be more committed to that.
Yes.
And I think that when people are joining us, what they want is, like I said, that community. And I think that listing leads don't help or don't hurt either. I think that everybody likes those, yeah. Especially considering what's happening in our business.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think I've maybe heard that a couple times. Most teams and brokerages give lots of buyer leads, but the listing, yeah, you got to bring your own listings if you're going to get them. So that's pretty cool. And so you're able to do that because of relationships you've built up in the past?
Yeah. I've been in DFW. So I got licensed in West Texas. I was telling you that before we jumped on, in a town called Lubbock, Reckham. And and when I moved here, I really had to start from scratch. And that was 4 years ago. And the first thing I did is I just joined all of the Facebook groups. So if you're listening and you are not part of every investor Facebook group in your area, you need to join it. And then I just tried to connect with wholesalers. I'd see that they were wholesalers, right? Off-market property available, and I'd DM them. Hey, if that property, if you can't assign it out to someone, you should call me, and I'll throw it up on the MLS. You can connect me with the seller. I'll pay you a referral fee, because the worst thing to a wholesaler is to get something locked up and then they can't assign it out.
Right. Yeah. Without the distribution, they can't, there's nothing happening, right? It's all about the distribution.
Yeah. And then the very first, Josh, he and I are still partners. He and I bought a mortgage company together this year as well. He is a local wholesaler here, and the very first deal that he gave me was a rental, and he was looking for a tenant. And I said, listen, it was a beautiful house, $6,000 a month or something. I said, hey, can I put it on MLS for you and help you find a tenant? And I don't want anything in return except to keep all the leads. And that was a month into selling real estate here. So that was a great way for me to get exposure, to gain credibility with this guy, and to start getting some leads. And I ended up selling a couple of houses from those leads too. In fact, that seller who he was trying to place a tenant, she and I are still in a client relationship, and I've sold maybe 6 properties for her now.
Incredible. Okay, 2 different directions I want to go. I absolutely want to talk about how agents can work with investors and have that relationship work, because I think most agents just write off investors as like competitors, or doing something totally different that we can't help or work with. That's how I used to think. But also, well, actually, yes, let's start there before we get totally off on one of my tangents that I'm famous for. Working with investors. What do you teach your people is the value in building investor partnerships? And then once you have those, how do you turn them into business?
I tell my agents all the time that I am a big believer in working with investors for the long term. So if that means that you cut your commission down in order to get that listing, once again, their business is their business. If they choose not to do that, that's fine. But that's what I did. I would put myself out there because I wanted the volume. I wanted the experience. And if I was making 1% of something that was a $300,000 house, everything to me is, I used to make $4,000 a month working 40 hours a week as a librarian. $3,000 for one house? Let's go. Right. Like, that to me is easy decisions. So I believe that, the volume and the long-standing relationship with an investor is something I preach to my agents all the time. I also tell them, as we get into this market that we're in that's unpredictable and it's slow sometimes, when you have investor partnerships and you can do creative things and you're willing to think outside of the box, like we work with sub-2 students, if you know Pace Morby and what he does, I'll help them place seller financing in buyers. The more you educate yourself on the different strategies out there, novations, that's another thing I do. If an investor locks up a property and has a novation on it, I'll put it up on MLS and help them find a buyer. As long as, we're all protected, everything's ethical, do what you got to do, guys. Make some money.
This is so simple, the way that you're doing this. You're just looking at it as, okay, what do these people need? What are what's the bottleneck in their business? Like, what are they struggling with? And then you look for how you can help with that. And that, for you, it's exposure, promotion, marketing, access to the MLS, an end buyer. And that makes a lot of sense. So hearing you say that, it's like, wait, why aren't agents working with investors more? It's kind of insane.
Well, you know that one I told you that my very first deal I did with Josh, the investor here in DFW, the wholesaler, where I was able to place a tenant for him. Well, he connected me with the sellers, and the sellers needed to buy a new property in order for them to move out of the one that we were placing tenants in. And I was so excited because I had not sold a single thing in DFW yet. I'd only been here a couple of months. And so it was COVID, because it was 2020, COVID. My kids were out of school. I wasn't teaching because they didn't really want the librarian trying to do more because everybody, it was turmoil, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess I'll work on my business. I took the kids out and we found so many lake properties for these people. And we got one under contract, it closed, and I made $12,000 off of that, Dustin. And that was like life-changing money for
Yep.
me and the kids. I mean, that was what, 3 months of teaching in one commission check? That's crazy. And that really spurred everything. Because what I did is I took half of the money and I paid down some debt. When I moved from Lubbock to Dallas, I had to actually take out a loan with Wells Fargo for $5,000 in order to put a security deposit on a rental. I paid that off, and then the rest of it I just pushed back into my business, and I bought, the courses, and I bought signs, and I did all the things and invested in myself.
I love it. Okay. The other direction that I wanted to go on, Brittney, because we could talk about working with investors, and what I love is how creative you are, and you keep things simple, but you're very creative about how you approach them. So I'm very curious how you approach this. And you mentioned this earlier. You just wanted the rental leads that came from, putting that rental property, high-end rental property on the market, and all you wanted in return was the leads. And you got some actual business, some purchase business from those rental leads. So do you have, how are you converting rental leads? Because most agents are like, they want nothing to do with rentals. How are you
Well, in
turning?
a $6,000 house, I mean,
Yeah,
if that one didn't work out for them, but they were willing to pay $6,000 a month, that meant that I could find something else for them.
great point.
And here in DFW, for something like that, they're paying 50% to the tenant's agent, and so that's $3,000. Once again, I was making $4,000 a month as a teacher, and I get to go look at beautiful homes with interesting people. It's all in your perspective, I think.
1,000%. Do you still recommend that agents work with renters and go after rental leads, or does it depend on the property,
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
or does it depend on the property or the price point?
Well, I think that if you are complaining about money and you turn down a rental property, then I don't know if I have time to talk to you. The only time I would say it's different, like I was saying, I was talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger earlier, and the reason I keep bringing it up is because I do Mindset Monday calls with my team on Mondays, and I just jump on there and we talk about whatever. Like I've talked about Jamie Foxx or limiting beliefs, and this morning was Arnold Schwarzenegger, so he's just fresh on my mind. He was so smart. He took all of his bodybuilding profits and he bought real estate. He bought an apartment building and then, quick equity, pulled that out, stacked it into a new one. In Bigger Pockets, they talk about the stack, right? It's where you keep going from sizing up, basically. And he was doing that to the point where he had enough residual income coming in, enough passive income, that when he was ready to start looking at roles in movies, he didn't want to be another Nazi soldier. He didn't want to be a bodyguard. He wanted to be Clint Eastwood. He wanted to be a leading man, and he didn't have to take the grunt jobs. He wanted the big stuff, and he set himself up for success. And so I think that I have agents like that on the team. They stocked up enough reserves that they have a goal. They want to be a luxury agent, or they want to be solely a listing agent, and so they probably won't take those little rental income, but they're also not bitching about money either. They have a plan. And so that's what I was saying. If you're complaining about money but you don't want to work a lead, or you don't want to help someone find a rental, then I don't think that your motivation is matching your goals.
I agree 1,000%, and I certainly respect the way you put that. I mean, look, not everyone is meant to be successful on their own. You know, some people should be an employee of a company. Some people should be an agent on a team. You know, others should start their own teams and brokerages, right? So you just have to know who you are and what makes you tick. But this market that we're going into, or this, not even the market, the environment, this real estate world, I'm curious with what happened on Halloween with the NAR lawsuit that NAR lost. I don't know how the hell they lost it, but that's a story for another day. There's so many misconceptions out there with consumers right now about real estate agents and buyer brokers and, you know, all this stuff and commission. What are you teaching your people? What are you teaching your team about? Like, are you doing anything differently? Do they need to do anything differently? What are you telling them about what happened just a week ago?
Well, we've talked a lot about it. We talked about it leading up. We talked about it after. And what I've been telling the team is, me personally, I am solely focused my money on getting listing leads. However, this is going to be a trickle down effect. This is not something that's going to, tomorrow you're going to see zero BAC on every listing in, you know, DFW. It's not going to work like that.
Of course not. No.
So what I'm telling them, and a question I posed in our sales meeting last week, is what value does a buyer's agent bring to the table? And I made everybody pop something in the chat. And if you couldn't pop something in the chat, then maybe you shouldn't work with buyers, because obviously you don't see your own value. And so talking about, you know, the value, the fiduciary responsibilities that go along with that relationship, but also you want to be a listing agent. So start putting your marketing dollars that way.
Smart. I like it. Are you worried about buyer commission? Are you worried about buyer agency in general? Are you worried about anything at all with the lawsuit, even though it's going to be in appeals for years? Or are you excited?
You know, I think that anytime something like this happens, it's just an opportunity to grow and learn. And so to me, I'm curious to find out how things change and how we can adapt. I've been brainstorming, like, okay, maybe I should create some sort of like AI or some sort of showing service available for consumers, and they can just hit me up and $50, I'll show you a door. I feel like there's so many things we could do creatively to get in front of the problem. But no issue really scares me. This market doesn't scare me. It's just other opportunities to learn, you know?
I love that. COVID was one of those. I mean, you made some major moves in your life and career during COVID, as did a lot of other people in real estate and outside of real estate. When there's major upheaval and uncertainty, that's for the people with the right mindset. That's where all the opportunity lies, right? And unfortunately, some people don't see that. But I was talking on one of our team calls earlier today. For years, agents have been saying we need, you know, there's too many part-time agents. There's too many mediocre agents. There's too many agents that are doing a disservice to clients. We need less agents in the industry. Well, that's what's about to happen. But now people are freaking out. Like, you know, are you serious about your value proposition? Are you serious about the value that you and agents in general, good agents in general, bring to the market or not? Because if you are, then this is such a great opportunity. People still want buyer's agents. They still want listing agents. They still want representation. They still want an advisor and a guide through the process, because the process is ridiculous, right? And it's not simple. Even for those of us that do it all day, every day, there's always something new. There's always something coming out of left field. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all, Brittney, that you see it as an opportunity. And I assume your people, your team, they all feed off of that too, and are probably inspired and excited to get after it.
I hope so. That's the goal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So anything else you want to add about the NAR lawsuit, the verdict? Are you anything else you want to add as far as guidance that you're giving to your team about how to operate moving forward?
I will say that all of this just brings me back to mindset. And I think that you can either have a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset. You know, you were talking about like bad agents leaving the market. You know, in my mind, I just think I want to work with good agents, right? I want to work with an agent that understands the contract. I want to work with an agent that we don't have to go back and forth because it's a power play. We understand that we're both trying to get the job done. And so to me, if you just focus on that abundance, then it's going to continue. Focus on what brings value to buyers, you're going to get buyers and you're going to get paid for your time.
1,000%. And surrounding yourself with others that think the same way that's always been the way forward.
Yeah.
But now it's more valuable than ever before, more important than ever before, because there's so much bullshit, so much negativity and pessimism in our industry that if you're not surrounded by constant positivity and those who really do see it as an opportunity and then act in accordance with that, you've got to be around those people, or else you'll naturally just fall into the pessimism and the headlines and the BS like most. And the path of most is usually not the best path to be on, unfortunately.
Agreed. 100%. 100%.
Brittney, I would love to have you on the show again and talk more about how you've built the business you've built and what you're doing, and how you're still there's so much we could talk about. But for now, I want to make sure we have time for the rapid fire questions, because I don't want angry messages from listeners, which happens every damn time I forget to do the rapid fire questions. So let's run through those real quick. They're very simple either or questions. And then we need to make sure everyone gets a chance to hear where they can find you, where they can talk to you, where they can learn more about you and connect with you, and about your, what your brokerage offers and all that. We'll do that right at the end. So if you're ready, let's jump into the rapid fires. You good?
Awesome.
Okay. I mean, this is really difficult stuff here. Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
Instagram or TikTok?
Oh, Instagram.
Okay. Instagram or YouTube?
Instagram.
I love it. Books or podcasts?
Books.
Books or audiobooks?
Audiobooks.
You're all about efficiency, aren't you?
I love to multitask, although I'm really trying to be better at focus tasks.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a podcast and audiobook guy, but there's something about sitting down and reading an actual physical book with paper that I seem to get more out of. And I think it's just the focus factor. So,
yep.
Burgers or pizza?
Pizza.
New York or LA?
I've never been to New York, so I'm going to go LA.
Really? Okay.
I know. I need to go.
I love New York. I love New York, but I didn't go until 2018. May of 2018 was the first time I went. And yeah, that was awesome. I went for a Gary V podcasting event, actually. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. Been 2 or 3 times since, but New York's cool. Baseball or football?
Football. Although the Rangers just won the World Series, and
I saw
one
that.
of my Airbnbs has from the patio you can see the Rangers ballpark, so that's pretty exciting. Go Rangers!
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Pro or college?
College.
Nice. Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Podcast or vlog?
Podcast.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or Millionaire Real Estate Agent?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Assets over liabilities all day.
Love it. Cash flow quadrant. It's good stuff. Uber or Lyft?
Lyft.
Gary V or Grant Cardone?
Grant Cardone, although Gary V's really cool.
Nice. All right, I'm going to add a few extra for you. Dallas or Austin?
Dallas.
I've never been to Austin, so
but
I don't know
I'm
shit
from
about it.
DFW, so.
Yes. And then team or brokerage?
Well, brokerage.
I told you these are softball questions. I mean, that one was just ridiculous. But Brittney, where can people find you, connect with you, talk to you, learn more from you?
Yeah, so Instagram. I don't know if you got the fact that I'm an Instagram person, Brittney.Kosev, or
I picked that up,
BK
yes.
Real Estate. And then we have offices all over Texas. So we just opened up a Waco division. We have Houston, Austin, San Antonio. We even have Wichita Falls. So we're all over Texas and really looking to grow.
Damn. Brittney, you're moving fast. I love it.
Massive action.
I love it. Super cool. I'm really excited to get to know you more today. Would love to talk with you again in the future. This is awesome. I love what you're doing. I love your mindset. I love your approach to business. And this, I enjoyed this talk very, very much. If you guys are watching on YouTube, just go into the show notes, or the description is what they call it. The YouTube description will have Brittney's links to her Instagram and all the good stuff. And if you're listening to the podcast, same thing, go into the show notes. We'll have Brittney's Instagram handle and all that good stuff as well. So make sure you follow her, connect with her, reach out to her, because obviously she's the real deal. Brittney, thank you so much for being on the Massive Agent Podcast.
Thanks, Dustin.
Absolutely. I hope that you took as many notes as I think you probably did. Brittney's very creative, and some of those tactics and strategies she used while she was growing are super clever. I mean, use them if you'd like, don't use them, whatever. But that out-of-the-box thinking, she understands that it's all about getting the phone to ring. It's all about starting conversations. What you do with it from there is totally up to you. And you also need to be comfortable with rejection. You know, a lot of agents would not have been willing to take that much rejection, but she kept persevering. And I think maybe because her back was to the wall and she didn't really have a choice otherwise, but that drive and that tenacity is why she is as successful as she is today. And so, I mean, she's a rising star in real estate. I'm happy to get to know her through this episode, and I'm excited to have her on the show at some point in the future. Make sure you follow her. Her Instagram handle is in the show notes and the YouTube description if you're watching the episode on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this episode. If you got any value from it whatsoever, if you learned anything, then that means there are many other agents out there that would also learn from it. Please share it. Put it in your story, send it out in a Facebook group, share it with your broker, your team, whatever you need to do, but help us to spread the word and grow the audience. And I will keep coming back every single week with another great episode of the Massive Agent Podcast. Thank you for listening. Take care.